Assalamu alaikum listeners, welcome back to another edition of The Future Show here on Inspire FM. I'm your host, Amr Azam. The Future Show is a look at all things careers and education in our town. And over the past few episodes, we've been lucky enough to be joined by students in our last show with local high schools as we look back on 1 year of COVID. Before that, we had a special episode dedicated to our schools, our head teachers and senior leaders in particular, who shared their own reflections on teaching and learning through the lockdown. In this latest edition of the show, we dedicate it to women in leadership. I want to present my co-host in a few moments for this particular episode, Alia Khan. Alia is a public affairs and policy officer at the National Children's Bureau. Together with Farheen Ahmed, a trainee international commercial lawyer at Hogan Lovells LLP, and Sumaya, Jannat, a senior analyst for KPMG, they share their career journeys, those defining moments when those opportunities came their way, but they also don't shy away from those challenges that came their way too as well. I'm also pleased to say that Alia, Farheen and Sumaya have joined me at local charity Unleashing Potential as mentors, more of which we'll share later on. Assalamu alaikum, Alia. Tell us where the idea for this show came from.
Walaikum salam, Amr. Thank you very much for having me on and allowing me to co-host. So the idea for the show, I think, came between the three of us. We kind of wanted to speak more about women in leadership, because I feel in our town not a lot of women in leadership are exposed in that way. Obviously, a lot of our talent is showcased, and a lot of talented individuals are highlighted across our town in the various different means and channels that we have. But I find we don't speak enough about women in leadership, and I guess the three of us wanted to kind of discuss our own personal journeys to be able to resonate to another young woman out there, another a 13, 14-year-old out there listening in, to be able to realize that they are destined for greatness, and that they are someone who will go on to do great things in life.
All three of you work away from Luton, but want to give back. Why is that?
I think principally the reason why we all work away from Luton is because it gives us the opportunity to be exposed to the outside world, to be able to go out there and learn new things about the world, and in turn be able to give back to the community that brought us up. Personally, from my own experience, I grew up in Dallow Ward, which is widely known for its poverty rates. I'm someone who grew up in poverty, and no matter how far you've made it in life, you always remember where you come from. And as a result, I've always felt, like I need to give back. And if we want to make a better world for the future, bettering our society, we need to be better people for our own communities and do better for our own home. And I certainly think the reason why we all kind of work in city and in leadership and doing well for ourselves, and in that I think the blessings came from Luton, I think, because we were so involved quite early on, as we speak about later on in the show. And I think we really want people to realize, young people especially, to realize that they are destined for greatness, and they are able to go on and make it in life, even if they feel like they have no way out.
Listeners, you're listening to the Future Show here on Inspire FM. I'm your host, Amr Azam, with my co-host, Alia Khan. In a few moments, we're going to be handing over to Alia in a pre-recorded segment with Farheen Ahmed and Sumaya Jannat, where they share their reflections upon growing up in the town and how they've, alhamdulillah, come into positions of women in leadership, as they describe it as well. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can email us on futures@inspirefm.org, futures@inspirefm.org. I'll now pass over to Alia. Thank you.
So Farheen, tell me a little bit about your experience growing up in Luton, and what you feel helped you growing up and coming to a place that you are at now today.
Yeah, sure. So a bit of background on me. I grew up, born and bred in Luton. come from a Pakistani family, went to local schools, studied at Shawnee High School for Girls. I knew quite early on that I had interests in the sort of the legal side and sort of history and sort of English, those sort of subjects. And I knew that law was something I'd like to look into when I was thinking about my career, and also had a lot of sort of encouragement in that area from my parents. So I studied at Shawnee High School for Girls, did really well there, and then went on to study my A levels at Luton Sixth Form College, where I studied history, economics, and politics and English. Um, I then got a lot of encouragement from teachers at the college in relation to universities and where I'd be studying. I knew by that point that I wanted to study law because I'd done an internship at a Magic Circle law firm over the summer in London, and I then applied to various universities. I had a choice of a few that I really wanted to go to, one of them being the London School of Economics,
So
where I
Farheen,
secured that
sorry,
and carried on.
so you also applied for Cambridge as well, didn't you? As
Yes,
far as I'm aware.
that's right. Yeah. So I when I had was at college doing my A levels, I actually did have a lot of understanding of leading universities at that time, because obviously I was from a family where my family members hadn't, a lot of them hadn't gone to university, and there wasn't a lot of that within the family, and my understanding wasn't very strong. So teachers were very much the reason that I but built an understanding of the leading law schools in the UK. So one of my teachers, history teacher David, he sort of said to me that you have stellar grades, so why don't you consider Oxford application?
Mm.
At that time, I was like, oh, okay, never thought about that. But then I went to different universities. I interviewed at Cambridge, didn't get it, but at that point, I'd got my LSE offer,
Mm.
and I was really, really happy with that, because I wanted to be in London,
Mm.
and I wanted to be at that law school. So yeah, so that's been my education background so far, amongst other things I'm sure we'll come on to.
Yeah,
And
and I
then since then it's been work.
yeah, and I just kind of wanted to touch on how, because obviously you're a Chorley High School for Girls alumni. I kind of just wanted to focus more on what your experience in high school was at Chorley Girls, and how that shaped your understanding of the legal framework, and basically what your inspiration was to
Mm-hmm.
pursue a career in law from very early on, because not very many people from early on would know that they want to go into law. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I think Chorley High School for Girls, for me, overall, I had an incredible time. I think high school is one of the best parts of my life, and I think the key thing that I think what got me through high school, and you know I did really well, was the support system. And that's your family. My mum was the key inspiration behind my success, because she always taught me about discipline and hard work, and work with integrity. And I think that was a key part of my journey through high school, because often what it comes down to is your company and your surroundings, and you can either get into a bad crowd or you can get into a good crowd. And a lot of the focus at high school was being amongst friends and people that were also ambitious, that were also very keen on making a success of high school. And I think the sport is always there in our local schools. Teachers are incredible, they're there to support, and it's about the students grabbing those opportunities, having the understanding of what your grades can do for your future, and then also having that support system at home. I very much appreciate that a lot of our students may not have that support system at home, which is why our local projects and sort of initiatives are there to support them through that. But that, for me, I always found that support system amongst friends and parents and family was the key driving force behind a successful high school life, and just making sure you have that focused perspective.
Mm. No, I certainly agree with that. And I think even in my experience, I find in high school, we would have, in Chorley especially, we would have assemblies where each week they would feature a woman, an inspirational woman or woman in leadership, people, women from different industries and different sectors of the world. And every week they would dedicate a certain, a woman, an assembly to a
Mm-hmm.
certain woman. And from there, I think that was always my inspiration. And I think within me, I always knew that I was destined to go on to do greater things. And I always
Mm-hmm.
had that. And I think the sense of serving community for me came from Chorley. That sense and that feeling for me definitely started from my high school experience. Now, Sumaya, I wanted to ask you about, because obviously you come from Icknield High School, and obviously Farheen and I came from an all-girls school, so naturally our high school always featured women in leadership and women who were, going on to do amazing things in the world. I want to ask how your school kind of served that purpose for you, and how they, from the very beginning, even if at the time you didn't realize that they were doing something amazing for you and making you realize your potential. Can you talk a little bit about your background and how your school kind of served that purpose for you?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, like Farheen, born and bred in Luton, grew up in Luton. I went to Icknield High School, and then I went on to Luton Sixth Form College where I did my A levels. I think Icknield, it played such a big part in shaping who I am today in terms of, like Farheen said, the people that you grew up with, the teachers that I had that were extremely supportive. Especially during year 10, year 11, when you're doing your GCSEs, choosing which subjects you want to choose as your GCSE subjects, things like that. And yeah, I really just enjoyed school. Of course, the academic aspect of school, it got, like, the teachers got me through it. I think teachers and friends, and definitely family, having my parents to support me, and just making sure I contribute a lot of time towards my studies after school, or whether that be having a maths tutor, an English tutor, just to make sure I'm achieving my grades, my predicted grades and things like that. But yeah, I really enjoyed school. Of course, there was the academic aspect of it, and then the aspect of just having good friends, having fun as well, growing up with them, and obviously just having a good balance of everything. Yeah, that was me. And then obviously I think towards the end of school is when we started, when I joined the Youth Ambassadors Project, working with Luton Council, where I met you guys. But yeah, we'll probably talk a bit about that later.
Yeah, no. Sumaya, I wanted to ask, so Farheen said, she knew from very early on, from a very young age, that she wanted to pursue a career in the legal profession. She always had an understanding of it. And, because you studied law at the University of, is it Brunel University?
Yeah, Brunel University, yep.
And did you know from a young age that you wanted to study, or is that something that came later on in your life? Did you realize, did you know as a 13-year-old, did you know what you wanted to do? Because I know a lot of 13-year-olds out there at the moment. I didn't know what I wanted to do at 13, I'll be honest. Did you kind of have, an understanding of what you wanted to go into from a young age?
I wouldn't say from an early age. I think when I was in school, I enjoyed subjects like English, history, and things like that. And I was always confident and articulate. So I think those kind of like skills were there early on, I would say. And then when I went on to college, I obviously chose to study law. And that's, I think, when I decided that I want to study law at university, because I really enjoyed studying it. And again, obviously pursuing that career in law was always that option there, but obviously as I'll talk about later, I didn't actually end up pursuing that career in law or like practicing law. But yeah, from an early age, I don't obviously the ambition was there, but I think it changed over time, I would say.
What was it that changed for you? Obviously, because everyone goes into law,
yeah,
I'm assuming everyone goes into law thinking they're going to go on and pursue a career in law. What for you changed? What was it that made you realize that actually there's more to law, and that I want to serve my purpose in this world, and serve my community and serve myself at the same time in a different industry? How did that go about for you?
I think it was when I was doing internships. I was gaining my experience within law firms, and also other professional service firms, attending events, and just gaining that insight and experience quite early on. And I just guess that really widened my options, and made me think that of course, I can go and pursue a legal career, but there may be something else there for me that, may sort of capture my sort of skills and interests better. Yeah, and I guess that's where, that's how I ended up not pursuing a career in law, and being in a different field. And of course, I think just gaining experience and sort of doing sort of community work and things like that. I think, you know, and how you touched on serving the community, it's really important. It was really important in shaping who I am now and kind of improving my communication skills and things like that. So yeah, I think there was a different range of factors that contribute to, you know, where I am now and, you know, what I do and things like that.
Definitely. And I think, unlike, you know, Farheen and yourselves, I wasn't very articulate because I moved to the country at the age of 7. I didn't know the language. I didn't have any friends in the country, and I was, you know, when I first moved to the country, I was very, very shy, and I didn't really speak very much. And I mean, it's hard to believe now. Many wouldn't believe this when I say it now, but I think my experience was, you know, I was you know, an actual immigrant that moved to the country at the age of 7, didn't have any friends. My primary school experience, I would say I had a very difficult time settling in. So because I didn't speak the language, I didn't make friends very easily. But, you know, once, you know, that's the thing that I overcame. I think, you know, suddenly they say maturity comes in moments, I think. And for me, that's certainly true, because for me, I realized in moments, actually, if I speak up and actually say something, then I'll become more articulate. And I think towards, you know, my high school life, and Shawnee girls actually really encouraged me to be more articulate and to, you know, because they would always put on things like debates and, you know, encourage girls to, you know, go on trips and, you know, do presentations and things like that. And I think that really helped me in my own personal journey. And I'm someone who came from, you know, for a very long time, I was in a one-parent household until, you know, my stepdad came along. And I think, you know, my high school experience contributed a lot towards me gaining my confidence. Farheen, I know you also similarly grew up in a single-parent household. How do you think that, you know, how did you overcome the difficulties that come with that, if you felt there were difficulties? And how you felt the community, you know, community projects supported you along your project that way, if there were any?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely relate. So for most of my sort of educational life, I grew up, I was a only child in a single parent household. But I think I consider myself really lucky in that I had my mum's full attention, and she went, you know, out of her way to ensure that I was given the support I needed throughout my educational life. My mum was very sort of keen for me to progress in my career and my education, and that was very, very integral part of my success. But I think aside from, you know, as I said, the support system at home is crucial, and I had that. But aside from that, there are certain skills that you just need to get by putting yourself out there, and confidence and social skills. And the way I think that came about for me was getting involved in local community projects. For example, Sumaya mentioned the Young Ambassadors project that all 3 of us were part of, and that at the age of 14, 15, leading projects within Luton for young people, when we were still young people ourselves, was a very key part of building social skills, communication skills, confidence skills. And we did those things. We went out of Luton, we started going beyond our local communities, we worked with other people. And I just made sure that every summer, when every summer came about, we were part of, you know, some kind of project, and we were doing something, charity projects, social project, just something that kept us busy and kept us out there. Because what we often may find is that students are very, very intelligent, very, very academic, and, you know, they're excelling at school. But within my own family, you know, cousins who are just so bright but lack that confidence because that part of their environment hasn't been as strong in terms of going out there and partaking in it can be anything, it can be sports, it can be anything that's there. But it's about making sure that you know about the local opportunities and you're getting involved where possible. I know schools do summer schools now, you know, local, even our local mosques do summer events and summer schools. These things are there to help students build those skills at a young age. And I definitely think, aside from the support at home and support you, the sort of ambition you retain, the confidence starts early when you know, get involved in what's available for you in your local communities and get involved in projects. And we didn't actually have this radio show at that time either, I don't think, guys. So I think we had to just, you know, go wherever we could and find what was there. And now we have, you know, privilege of radio where things are promoted and
Mhm.
there's more way, there's social media that's a lot more alive now, and you get to see what's happening a lot more than you did 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, I
You want,
definitely
when that's
agree.
out there, you can make use of that, utilize it, and by that you will definitely improve your skills, and it'll set you up nicely for when you are out in the real world of work and professionalism.
No, yeah, I definitely agree, Farheen. I think, yeah, even, as a 13-year-old, the advice that, Sumaya, what advice would you give to a 13-year-old listening if they are someone who is quite shy, like I was, and
Mhm.
someone who but wants to do positive things for their communities, but don't know how to go about it, and just need some guidance? What advice would you give? I'll start with Sumaya, and then Farheen, I'll move on to what advice you would give. So Sumaya.
I would say just just throw yourself in there, get yourself involved, even if you are shy or a bit nervous, because I still have those moments where I'm nervous or whatever, but I'm just like, I have to do it because it's for the greater good. And as a 13-year-old, your studies are very, very important, but like Farheen said, there's so many things right now, like in our community, to get yourself involved in, and yeah, you might be shy, you might be nervous, but once you're there, you really will enjoy it. And it will really develop you obviously you won't see it as a young sort of teenager, but once you're older, and when you're at university or after university, you really do see how your confidence has boosted, how you're able to talk to people, and it's just sort of skills that you can learn early on, whilst you're young. So obviously, focus on your studies and things like that. That's really important as well. But also get yourself involved in some form of volunteering or a sports club, or things that you're interested in. I agree with Farheen in the sense that Luton has so much going on right now in terms of opportunities and things like that, and social media could promote early on, like back in our day. I feel so old saying that, but back in our day it was quite hard to find these opportunities and find yourself there, but schools, colleges, there's a lot of things out there. So yeah, definitely get yourself involved, don't be scared, and yeah, just do it.
And Farheen, I'm going to thank you for that, Sumaya. Farheen, I'm going to give you 4 minutes to speak about that, because we will have to start going on to the break soon.
Yeah, sure.
4 minutes to sum that up. Sum up.
No, I definitely agree with Smaya, being at the right place and grabbing those opportunities. But I also think a key thing I now tell younger people in mentoring and tutoring is that have an open mind. There's so much out there for you that you can go into. And I think we may come from backgrounds where I say this, and I'm a lawyer myself, but the most highly looked upon professions are the usual, your doctors, your lawyers, your engineers, and often we find that younger people only look at those because that's what they've heard in their surroundings from families, that you need to become a doctor, become a engineer, become a lawyer. But despite being a lawyer myself, I think a key thing is have an open mind from young age. Know that there's so much beyond that you can bring your skills to. Amongst us three, we've got policy, we've got consultancy, and there's just so much you can do. And have the open mind. At that age, there's just so much you can look towards. You can tailor your skills wherever they go. But that tunnel vision is important, but also to have an open mind going forward, because you'll come across so much in your educational experiences that may change your career path, may change your interests. And as long as you have that flexible mindset, you'll always end up at the right place in the right career for you and your skill set. So I think open-mindedness is a very key advice I would give any 13-year-old, any teenager, and even beyond your teenage years when you're at university. Some people still don't know where they want to go into. Sumaya went into did law and then went into a big four firm. So and I think the open-mindedness is what probably led her there, and that is a key advice for anyone in the educational path, to have the open mind. Don't be contained to the few professions that you know about through your family and surroundings, because there's so much out there. And once you go to universities and put yourself in the educational sector, higher education, you'll realize that. And as long as you have an open mind, you'll be successful.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, my family had the expectation that I would go on to do sciences, and that I would become a doctor, but in college, I ended up changing my science subjects to, the humanities subjects, history, politics, and law. And now I'm in policy. My family never would have imagined that I would end up in houses of parliament, influencing policy and, influencing, the people in positions of power, steering certain policies a certain way. I never would have thought, and no one in my family would have ever thought that I would be, involved in doing things like that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sumaya and Farheen, for sharing that. Listeners, please do join us after the break. We will continue this discussion, and I think we'll probably be focusing more on, the journeys through university and how, us as women can take our experiences from going out of the town and bringing, whatever we've learned back into the community, and how we can better serve our community, the community that raised us. So please do join us after the break. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, listeners. Welcome back to the second half of this edition of the Future Show here on Inspire FM. I'm your host, Amr Azam, and once again, I'm going to be joined by Alia Khan, my co-host, reflecting upon the conversations with Farheen, Ahmed, and Sumaya, Jannat. It's best to describe you guys as friends, because the closeness really came across in your conversations there. That closeness really seems to have bond you together, and it's enabled you to have this sort of shared outlook of giving back. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I think that's a fair assessment. If anything, so Farheen and I were best friends in Chorley High School for Girls, and we met Sumaya through the Young Ambassadors Project. And I think when you have a shared vision and a common like-minded individual, you tend to become really good friends. When you have, I think what brought us close was that we were always kind of encouraging of each other and always empowering of one another, and always, and that helped build each of our confidence up. I think it's fair to say that, to be able to credit ourselves, to be able to serve our friends in that purpose. And I think, one of the main benefits of working with the Young Ambassadors Project was not only were we doing, community work and giving back to the community, but we were also building our own relationships with each other and, giving each other the confidence. And I think when you meet, and I think it's really important for young people to realize, to be involved in projects such as the Young Ambassadors Project and Unleashing Potential, is because you will meet like-minded individuals and you will make lifelong friends.
We do hear a lot of references on Unleashing Potential, and it's a program that listeners will know I'm heavily involved in there as well. So very briefly, then, just tell us about some of your plans there for Unleashing Potential.
Yes, certainly. So with Unleashing Potential, it's a program that is very much shaped by us, the mentors, and we get to run as many projects as we want and as widely as we want. And I think that's one of the greatest things, is that Unleashing Potential, for people that are the mentees, they have something available for them in every aspect. And I think what Sumaya, Farheen and I plan to do with that is offer workshops to people and offer professional services, advice, and give them guidance on what, it's basically essentially just being a mentor for a young woman or a young man who is wanting to go out into the world and do great things.
Alia, I want to thank you for your first show as well, hopefully the first of many. Listeners, I'm going to be passing over to Alia, Farheen and Sumaya for the second half of their wonderful conversation. If in the meanwhile you're listening to the show and want to get in contact, please send us an email to futures@inspirefm.org, and we will come back to you.
Welcome back to our listeners for joining us today on the Futures Show. So earlier on, we were discussing with Farheen Ahmed, who is a legal professional going in to do her training contract at Hogan Lovells. And we've got Sumaya Jannat, who is a senior analyst at KPMG. We were discussing, and myself, who's a public affairs and policy officer at the National Children's Bureau, we were discussing our personal experiences through high school, and a little bit about our experiences with university and how that's helped us, and the skills we picked up, through that journey, and how we've, ended up where we are today. And also, Farheen and Sumaya were kind enough to, give a little bit of advice for the young people that may be listening in. So I'm just going to jump back into this. And so in passing earlier on, we mentioned the Young Ambassadors Project. So if you hear any of us referring to it as YAP, just know that it is Young Ambassadors Project that we are talking about. So Sumaya, I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned that YAP was something that actually helped you hone your skills, your communication skills, and it made you more confident. I just want to know what type of work that you did at YAP that helped you gain the confidence and the skills that you have now, and how you use them today in your line of work, and even in your normal daily life. If you are involved in the activism, things like that. How did Young Ambassadors Project help you, and how is it helping you?
Sure. Yeah. So with YAP, just a bit of context. I think there was about 10 of us young people, and obviously there were sort of people from the Luton Council kind of, leading the project and assisting us. But most of the time, it was kind of us doing all the sort of work. So the things that we got involved in, and we did, we organised events in the summer for the young people, where we kind of brought together so many young people from Luton of different backgrounds, and we done fashion shows, we organized events with lots of food, lots of entertainment, and then obviously we done the workshop side of things, where we would go into schools and colleges and we would do workshops with young people, and this was kind of something we done throughout the sort of year. And we did get a lot more busier during summer, doing more events and things like that. But there was a group of 10 of us, so a lot of teamwork, a lot of project management, and doing these things from early on, at the age of 15, 16, you can imagine it's very benefiting to us, because we're gaining so many skills at a young age, which then helps us later on in life when we go to university, or when we start full-time work and things like that. And I can definitely say, hands on heart, that the sort of work and things that I've been doing after university, where the sort of skills I have used, it's come from doing work with YAP, being more confident, the communication and interpersonal skills, just you being confident and being able to talk to senior management and senior stakeholders in projects and things like that. I do believe that my skills have rooted from being able to do that at a young age, and obviously project management, getting involved in big projects at work. I'm able to put my hands up first and say, yes, I'd love to get involved, and that's all come from, I would say, doing that sort of work early on. And I'm sure you guys can agree, it was work that we enjoyed, but at the same time it really improved our sort of skills and things like that.
Farheen, can you tell us a little bit about how it was beneficial to you to be a part of Young Ambassadors Project, and the skills you gained from that, and how you continue to use that in today in your profession?
Yeah, sure. So as Sumaya said, the Young Ambassadors Project was an initiative that focused on multiculturalism, which is one of Luton's biggest selling points. So what we used to do was organize events and workshops, organize those events, lead them, and bring in young people from the communities to workshops, fashion shows, just to promote sort of diversity and inclusion, trips, and just a whole host of things that were bringing the youth forward into the community projects. And I think some of the key skills that came out of that for me, that I talk about to this day, are teamwork, organization, and interpersonal skills, so your confidence and your communication skills. And when I work in international commercial law now for commercial law firm, and a lot of the work we do is international with big clients. And I think whenever I think about interviews and how I've sort of spoken about my experience of being in a team and communicating and being able to liaise with all kinds of people all across the world. I've gone all the way back home to my, young ambassadors experience at the age of 16, within Luton, within, your home communities. That's where the skills really came alive, and that's where the foundations are built. And I think it had that experience not happened, and I wasn't part of those communities so young, it probably would have taken a lot longer to build those as a growing adult. And it was definitely a key part of my youth. Still stands today. I will still be talking about it in, when I've been on panels and workshops and interviews, because it's something that was so key, and there were projects that really brought together people, and community driven and teamwork driven. And anywhere you go, any professional, we'll all know, Alia, you in public policy, Sumaya in consulting, our roles within the city, within firms, are teamwork driven, and they require teamwork, and they require communication skills. Maybe you can also talk about how, because obviously you're a lot more in the public with public policy and affairs, and Young Ambassadors was probably a huge part of your speaking and your communication skills, and even your teamwork and your lobbying part of the role that you're in. How that developed for you, and I'm sure you resonate.
Yeah, no, I definitely resonate. And I think, one of the events that we did as part of the Young Ambassadors project was holding a panel discussion between people in positions of power. So this was the police, beds crime and sorry, I'm losing the bit. There's a crime commissioner for Bedfordshire. He came along, the highest serving officer for Bedfordshire Police. We had leaders of Luton Borough Council come along, and then we also had prominent members of the community, and used that as a platform to start dialogue and discussion between the young people of Luton and the people in positions of power, and how it gave them a voice, and were able to raise their concerns to people in positions of power who are making all the decisions for them. And I think when we did that event, it really woke something up in me, that I realized, actually, by doing something as simple as a panel discussion, we're empowering young people and serving the community, the future generation are, and also when you hold these panel discussions and you give young people a chance to speak to people in positions of power, people who are making the decisions for them, it builds their skills of being articulate. And I think personally, moving a whole different country, from a very young age, and then going on to Chorley High School for Girls, thinking that I was going to pursue a career in science, going on to become a scientist, and that was the expectation my family had as well. And coming to college and realizing, actually, and this was during my time at YAP when I realized that actually my strengths lie in utilizing and empowering people. And that's, I think, when something really woke up in me and made me realize that actually, no, I don't, there's nothing wrong with pursuing a career in STEM, and I would absolutely encourage it. But I think there is beyond STEM. And and that's when I realized, when I was doing my work at YAP and making young people realize their potential and empowering young people to raise their voices to people in positions of power, that's when I realized, actually, I'm onto something here, and my strengths lie better in basically working in a policy arena where I'm, I didn't have an understanding what policy is. I didn't understand I didn't know the complexity of it at that moment, but I knew that I wanted to make that difference for young people. And now that I am working, in the National Children's Bureau, where I am, empowering and lobbying for issues concerning children and young people in Parliament, and I'm going out there, meeting with ministers and politicians, and also civil servants, people working on bills, the bill team. I'm in meetings every single day with people in positions of power, but very important people in our society, people who lead the country. And I never, ever in a million years would have thought that I would go from doing something, such a grassroots project such as YAP in Luton, the community work that we were doing in Luton, that I would end up in Parliament doing presentations to ministers, government ministers and civil servants and politicians and select committees. I never, ever in a million years would have imagined that I'd be doing that. And I just think, if it wasn't for YAP, I wouldn't have changed my subjects. I wouldn't have, realized that my strength lies in empowering other people. And I think that's why I went into public policy in the end, was because if I want to make a real change, it will be, from very in the background, from the very within the complexity of lawmaking and working on policy and developing policy, I think. I kind of, and I think, also helped me in my university experience, because it was something that I mentioned in my application for university. I spoke about the work we did, and I really think it did help me in my university application. And I know a lot of young people listening are thinking of going to university, because, so I would definitely encourage young people to be involved with more grassroots projects in their local community. And with Unleashing Potential, we're thinking of, we're not thinking, but we are looking to partner up with different schools. And I would say, if your school is partnering up, definitely get involved. Definitely, I would say, like Farheen said, be open-minded. Farheen, I wanted to talk a little bit about your experience and how you used YAP in your application, university application, how that helped you.
Yeah, definitely. So in my application, amongst various for university, actually, amongst various projects and things that we spoke about, I did speak about my community projects and how I would utilize and expand and hone those skills further at university. And one of the big things about studying at the LSE was just how diverse it was and how multicultural. It's one of the leading law schools in the UK, and it's also one of the leading universities in London, and it brings in people from all over the world. And we have an advantage growing up in a place like Luton, because we are amongst a community which is of people from all different backgrounds. We're in a very diverse community compared to somebody who may have grown up in a remote part of the UK, goes to university, and it's like culture shock. So we've had that experience, and we're almost we have a benefit from growing up in a place like here, and we should really use that to our advantage. So when I went to university, working on young ambassadors projects, working on community local charity projects, I used to get involved in a lot of local fund days and get to know people like that in Luton, and partake in charity work. I then used those skills at university in setting up new societies entirely. We worked on establishing an Islamic Finance Society. We got part of Pakistan societies, and those societies that were also similar and community driven like those in Luton. And it was those sort of teamwork and confidence and communication organizational skills that were built from Young Ambassadors Project and local projects here that were then used in university, and that helped me make a success of university, because I was able to participate in a lot of projects and a lot of events, because I had that experience prior. But I think what we need to also understand is you may not always have access to local projects and stuff, but there are still schools and colleges that are doing events that you can still be part of. If you don't have the means for weekend dedication or volunteering or summertime, there's always things going on within your institution. So a lot of our partner schools that we work with, that Unleashing Potential will work with, will do events, will organize internal events, and Sixth Form does several events. And I think it's about getting involved where you can, and wherever you can, build those skills, build those the key core skills for just general life, not just education, not just school, just general life, teamwork, communication, interpersonal, organizational, time management, a very crucial one for any adult, and just using what's around you. And that's appreciating that not everyone will be able to do dedicate summers, because people in Luton, a lot of students in Luton go for especially later teens, do summer part-time work because they need to support themselves financially. So within your institutions and within your schools, make use of what's there, and then you'll be in a good place when you get to your universities, hopefully. Or even if you don't go to uni, you go into apprenticeships, you'll always realize how invaluable your youthful experiences are in setting you up for success later on.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And obviously, for time purposes, I'll go on it, because we all went on to university and lived out for university. And I think the benefit of that for me personally, and I think Farheen and Sumaya would agree, was that it gave us the benefit of being able to have independence, but also go out into the world, know more about the world, come back and serve the community better. And I think our high school experiences leading on to YAP, and then YAP leading on to university, has been truly reflective of how grassroots community projects and schools can really shape us as people and shape the work that we do in a community. Now, I wanted to speak about your professional lives and how you have been able to use your professional lives and the skills that you got from a community project, and how you think that will be beneficial, and how you intend to give back to the community with unleashing potential in that way. So Sumaya, I'll let you start with that one.
Yeah, so after YAP went on to university, and how Farheen kind of mentioned, it kind of embedded that passion into us to kind of carry on doing things. So getting involved in different charity projects, international ones, and working for national charities such as DebateMate. And then after university, obviously I've been working for like 2 years now, and the skills and things that I want to kind of I think the main thing for me is I want to kind of be able to kind of mentor and inspire young people, both females and males. And sometimes, being from a small town like Luton, it may be quite daunting to think, oh, like, you're not capable of this or you're not capable of that. But, just broaden those horizons and be able to show young people that you are capable, just motivate and inspire them. It's really important, and kind of just promote these opportunities such as unleashing potential. There's a lot to come this summer, and young people should really get involved in if you come across a post or something on social media, and it's calling upon young people, just sign yourself up. You may not necessarily know what it is, but just sign yourself up, because it could be something that's very worthwhile for us three girls. Being part of YAP was, it played such a crucial part in shaping us. And after uni and 2 years of working, I've gained so many more skills, working for a big four firm. I've been able to network with so many different types of people, and we can reflect on those experiences and things like that.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. And I think the whole idea of unleashing potential is to make young people and parents realize that everyone is destined for greatness. And I think, mentorship programs like this are really key in making people, empowering young people and making them realize the skills that they have, and making them understand the skills that they have and how they can go on to use that and empower themselves and their communities in the future. And I think that's something very important as from personal experience, as a woman of color, as a Pakistani Muslim woman working in an industry that's very, very dominated by men, dominated by people that aren't necessarily from my background, so people who are in a very privileged come from a very privileged background, and I think unleashing potential is an initiative that utilizes young people, gives them the skills that they'll need in the future. And I would definitely encourage parents to send their children, particularly their daughters, to these grassroots community projects such as Unleashing Potential, and really realizing that actually your sons and daughters are destined for greatness, and for young people to realize that they can make a difference, and that they are here to serve a purpose, and they really are special, I think. And I think that's a very overarching and very important message that comes through with Unleashing Potential. I mean, Farheen, did you want to add anything, to that?
Yeah, so I think when I think back to when I became aware that I wanted to become an international commercial lawyer, I always think of myself as small town girl, but big city dreams. But what I didn't have at that point, and a lot of it was just my own research and my own sort of putting myself out there, was just that mentoring experience and having somebody to sort of walk you through how do you break into such a competitive field, how do you get into commercial law, how do you get into international commercial law. And I think that was something I lacked, and a lot of it came from being at the right place at the right time, and research and research and research. So now, and I do a lot of mentoring, and one of the things we want to do through Unleashing Potential is being able to use my experience and having gone through the hoops and the hurdles and getting to where I am now, inspiring other young people. And I have a huge focus on younger female students who want to be lawyers but don't know much beyond their local town, and not just lawyers, any professional, but because that's my experience, I know more about it. Just hand holding where you can, knowing students come from families that, like myself, there were no lawyers within the family, and especially lawyers, big city lawyers. So being able to guide and support through application processes, rejections and acceptances are all part and parcel of the role, but having somebody to go to, check this, check that, run something by you, interview experiences, those are the kind of things we want to do through this, and what we want to reach out to young people who have those ambitions, think of, want to go beyond their local vicinity, get into roles, competitive fields, and have somebody that can guide them through it, and not be sort of swimming in the deep end on their own, trying to figure it out. Because that's almost like how I remember it until I reached out to sort of charities and social mobilities programs, things like that. And until then, it's almost you're on your own until you find something that works for you. But when now there's a lot more in the community that professionals in the community that can help you, and just building those connections, networking. I think that would be a huge asset to young people that we'd be able to give through Unleashing Potential.
No, I definitely agree. Now, unfortunately, we have come to the end of our show, the Future Show. I really wanted to thank you both for coming along and speaking about your experiences. Thank you so much, Farheen and Sumaya. It was a pleasure having you on and having this discussion. And I also wanted to thank our listeners for joining in today and joining in our segment of Women in Leadership and, joining into the Future Show. Thank you very much. And I hope you will have a pleasant day. Inshallah, speak soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Alia. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.